The backbone of a content marketing strategy lies in its structural design. The trick is to mix and match the three ingredients mentioned at the end of Part 2 in a manner that will introduce your story and then advance it. As you do this, keep in mind that the main character of the story is your potential customer, not your product. After all, it's the customer who's investing the time and energy to look for a solution, and it's the customer who passes through the buying cycle. So the content for your story should evolve from what the customer will find relevant and/or useful, depending on the stage of the buying cycle. We can represent this relationship with an inverted pyramid, where the early stage content tends to be more broadly useful, but then becomes increasingly focused on your specific solution as the level of interest grows. The idea is to ease your way into their world, build a little rapport and trust, and then guide them toward your product when a want or need for your type of solution arises. For example, it's relatively common for a working mom to struggle with maintaining a balance between home, office, and personal needs. It's that sometimes inescapable feeling of being painted into a corner by it all. If this persona is relatable to your product or service, then perhaps a blog with free expert advice, tips, humorous anecdotes, or inspirational stories about this topic on your business website might be a good way to form a relationship, or at least develop product awareness and some possible interest in who you are and what you do. Social media might be enlisted to assemble a community of peers for giving and receiving moral support, and then maybe add a how-to demo that incorporates the benefits they'll derive from using your product. As you can see, there's not much out-and-out selling, but there's a lot of tapping into the power of positive association. It's an old dynamic that's found new life in the digital age. By the time you've fully implemented your strategy, you're likely to end up with a healthy mix of content, tools, and personas that collectively tell a story from different angles for turning potential customers into actual customers. Whether it's a B2C environment or B2B, it can work just as well in both. Now, this may so far seem kind of technical, and to a certain extent it is. But there's also an artistic side, and it rests with determining what the story will be, how it will be told, and how it should unfold or be formatted throughout the buying cycle. Insofar as these answers will vary from one enterprise to another, it presents an opportunity to really differentiate your product in the eyes of the customer. Think of it as courting or dating each persona, but by proxy, in the sense that you're allowing your content to do it for you. The beauty of this approach is that each prospect can enter the buying cycle when and where they want, and they can follow along at their own pace because it's all available on demand. From a psychological standpoint, they get to keep what's known as the locus of control, which is appealing in its own right because it's the exact opposite of feeling pressured, as sometimes happens when salespeople enter the process too soon or employ hard sell tactics. Instead, you now have a scenario of right persona, right information, and right time. Not only is this the essence of inbound marketing, it's also a big plus for search engine optimization, or SEO, especially if you keep breathing new life into the story. Many practitioners will develop a quarterly or even monthly editorial calendar to keep it fresh and dynamic. Another good thing is that you'll be accumulating an inventory of digital assets. Think of these as building blocks that can be reused across time with different communication tools and throughout the buying cycle. This is the content marketing equivalent of a Lego set. It invites greater cost efficiencies, and it helps to keep your story consistent and coherent all across the content marketing strategy. For instance, a series of blog posts might be transformed into an ebook, or ebook material might be parceled out in a series of blog posts. The only cautionary note is to recognize that the unfolding of all this effort is more like a marathon than a sprint. It won't necessarily yield immediate results, but the longer-term payoff can be both lasting and plenty worthwhile. Finally, let's take a moment to consider what happens after you've succeeded in achieving the customer acquisition objective. Is this the be-all, end-all of content marketing? To get just one transaction out of each customer? Of course not. At least not if you want repeat purchases or cross-sell and upsell opportunities. So now, in addition to customer acquisition, it's time to add customer retention as another goal for the content marketing strategy. Think of this content in terms of grooming customer loyalty or affinity, or perhaps inspiring users to share your content or even become brand ambassadors. This is a good time to also consider other types of content that will resonate with your audience. Notables that can help to elevate your brand and make it more embraceable, like social causes, national observances, holidays, or anything else that will make your brand appear more authentic, more human, and more humane. So this, in a nutshell, is a broad overview of content marketing. Admittedly, we can't cover everything just now, but we certainly can give you this global perspective. Except, there is one last thing, because after you've planted these seeds, you'll probably want to know about the yield. What did you get in return, and is it what you expect? Now we're talking about the back end of the content marketing strategy, things like metrics, measures, and key performance indicators. We'll reserve that content for Part 4. Look for the link on the page below. See you there.